Happy Monday. Welcome back to Inside the Lines. New week for bets, but we still have some wild card stuff to finish up. We gave out the Bills-Steelers plays earlier this week. We'll recap those and still do Philly Bucs. But before we do that, we still have an NBA slate to get through today. So I'm going to bring in Steven and Jake because before we get to NFL picks, we want to rip off quick, get to the Sixers spread here as tip-off is right about now.
Yeah, so real quick, Embiid is playing. Houston is just 6-10 on the road. The big reason is their three-point shooting on the road is 32%. In the last 3 games, they shot 23, 27, 24%. When Embiid plays 30-plus minutes, the Sixers are shooting 38% in games this year from 3. Without him, it's 34.5%. So it's resulting in this major projection advantage for Philadelphia from 3.
Bang. And Jake, you do like he is starting Embiid, so you do like his point total here as well.
I think with the model, I has him at like 37 or something like that. So if he does play, I assume he's not going to be restricted. And it's a really good matchup for him. So I like him to go off.
All right. Like that there. Let's rip through a few more of these games here. Both of you guys on Jalen Johnson in this Spurs-Hawks game. We'll start with his rebounds. Steven, you like the rebounds here?
Yeah, it's over 8.5 at nearly even money. Model's at 9.3. The line's down because the last 2 games he only has 10 total rebounds. But before that, in the previous 9 games, he's averaging just under 10 rebounds a game. I think from a size and athletic standpoint, there's a lot of Spurs players that Jalen Johnson's a good matchup with, so he should be able to play. And Atlanta, for whatever reason, is a horrible team at home this year. Just 3-14 against the spread, 6-11 straight up. So I'm thinking that this game may not be as lopsided as you would think with a Spurs road game, so he'll be forced to play major minutes.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of his major minutes, Jake, you also like his point total here.
Yeah, so I was on his points, and then I was on 15.5, then it went off the board, and then I saw underdog at 14.5. So I just grabbed it at 14.5. I was on his points over 16.5 last game, made a dud of a game. So I'm betting on him to bounce back, or else he's going to be on the shit list.
The dreaded list, yes. Yeah,
he's going to be on the dreaded list. So he better go off today. And I really like this matchup for him, especially with Wemby only playing probably 20, 25 minutes.
That is important. All right, let's move over to Chicago, headed to Cleveland. We've seen slight steam on the over end to Cleveland here, but we still like over 220.5.
Yeah, since Vucevic and Levine have come back for Chicago, they came back 5 games ago, but it's really solid. Look at the last 4 games. You see a lot of high-scoring matchups, both points scored and points allowed. So Chicago's much more comfortable getting into an offensive shootout with opponents. Now, 2 of these games did go into overtime, but in both cases, Chicago covered fairly big spreads, 5.5 type spreads in overtime. So they were still giving up plenty of points in regulation to not so great teams like Charlotte. Cleveland also, without Evan Mobley, he's been out for a while, but Mobley, with Mobley, they allow around 111 per game. This goes back to 100 game samples. And then the 20 plus games without him, they allow 115. So conditions are right for Cleveland to also allow. Cleveland's been scoring the ball pretty well. I mean, this 111 versus Brooklyn was in Paris. It was a slow start, but they still managed to put up 111. 117, 114, 140, 121. So again, both teams are playing higher scoring games recently. And so I like this to be also high scoring.
All right. Good stuff there. We're going to keep plowing through these. Headed to Boston, going to Toronto. Siakam, we're going back to him. I think I had trouble with him last week.
Well, we had to play on him, but then he ended up sitting, so that doesn't count. Okay. But yeah, I like his rebounds. It's down to his line's down to 6.5 minus 105 on the over because he's averaging just 6.3 rebounds per game this season. And I haven't, admittedly, watched every second of Toronto Raptors game, so I'm not sure why his rebounds down almost 1.5 per game from the previous season. But with Jakob Poeltl out, I'm banking on Siakam being relied on as a rebounder. Enough to get 7 boards, which is, would have been, 2 years ago, this line probably would have been at 8.5.
Mhm.
So he looks like in his recent games he's been relied on as a scorer more often, and he's been shooting more threes. So maybe something with the RJ Barrett and Quickly addition would impact that, but I'm not exactly sure why his rebounding's down low.
Let's go over to a prop from the chat here, looking at Scotty Barnes and his rebound total set at 6.5.
Yeah, we were talking about that before the show, that his rebounding has gone way down since the trade.
His line was 8.5 every game before the trade, and since the trade's averaging like 5 rebounds per game.
Yeah, 2, 4, 2, 3, 7, 3. I'm not sure why RJ Barrett would be the guy that you would expect to rebound the ball. I mean, he's not a bad rebounder, but it doesn't make sense. I think these are basically buy low opportunities.
Mhm.
The probability of Scotty Barnes and Siakam becoming 4.5 rebound per game players. I like the probability of them going back to 7.5, 8, more than staying at where they are.
Okay. Let's go over to the Pacers going to Utah. Utah has been a covering machine recently, and you think this might be an act now play. We're seeing some slate steam to Utah here.
Yeah, last time I checked, you could still get 6.5 at a nice -110. And, Indiana's playing obviously without Tyrese Halliburton. Utah has not only been killing teams, but they've been killing good teams. Since they got crushed at Boston, they beat one at Philly, at Milwaukee, really dominated, beat Denver, killed Toronto, and then killed the Lakers. They're fully healthy. They can match up with guards. They can match up with big teams. And Indiana, again, without Halliburton, he's worth around 4 points at the line. I would have thought, based on the eye test, he's worth even more than that. So I like this play for Utah to score. They've been scoring 130.6 the last 5 games, and Indiana's one of the worst road teams in terms of points allowed in the league.
As far as Halliburton being out in general, any specific players we should be looking at? Do you have minutes bumped up? I know Derek probably has an answer for that in the chat as well.
Well, Nembhard had a big game his last game.
Yeah,
he had the 29 minutes. And McConnell didn't get the minutes. Before that, McConnell was getting the bump up. So I think it's game flow. McConnell didn't start the game shooting very well, so it looked like he went to Nembhard.
Obi Toppin had a pretty good game off the bench last game. Our Neesmith's on our
he's on the list, both the injury list and our team's S list.
S list, yes, the growing S list. All right, let's move over to OKC going to the Lakers. We like OKC money line here. S is also on Austin Reeves' assists in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, I've been picking a lot of Lakers type plays because the stats say they're a good defensive team, especially at home and when they're in a gotta win it situations. But they seem to have been in many gotta win it situations recently, and they barely won against Toronto, got crushed by Phoenix, got crushed by Utah. And I just think that OKC is the actually more talented team, not historically, but right now more talented, certainly harder working, and just better and deeper team. Even on the road, OKC's 11-6 with a +7 point differential. Their defense really steps on the road. They allow 51% shooting on from twos, 35% from threes, which is both considerably better than they do at home.
Steven in the chat asking about SGA 31.5 points. We might have been talking about this earlier this morning as well.
Yeah, Model doesn't have value, but I love it because he's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I if I go SGA over points every game, I'd go over. I just wouldn't bet under. Especially there was a trend where Orlando had been great against shooting guards in like the last 2 seasons, and a lot of people played his under, and then he went off against them. And
I also love that D'Angelo Russell had a big offensive game in the last game. Maybe they'll actually play him more, which would really help SGA tear him up.
Yeah.
All right, we got 2 props to get through from Jake. Going back to his roots, looking at some European players here, heading to the Pelicans, going to Dallas here.
Yeah, I think it's a good matchup for Valanciunas. I'm surprised it's only at 13.5. He was one of those 4 players to rest. See, all the top 4 players, Williamson, Ingram, McCollum, and Valanciunas. Actually, even Murphy sat yesterday, and they still won because Jordan Hawkins had 34 points and was knocking that every 3. But I think it's a really good matchup for him with a 15.2 points. He's gone over in his last 4 games. -105 is pretty good value here as well. And Dallas, they have Derek Lively, but he's a rookie, and I think Valanciunas has 100 pounds on him.
Mm-hmm. All right, one more European player to get through. Bogdanovic over here. We have Detroit going to Washington.
Yeah, Bogdanovic, he was listed. He missed last game due to a calf injury, but I'm almost positive that it's just rest because he was coming off a back-to-back. This is a really good matchup for him against a Washington defense that isn't that great. He's played one game this season with 3+ days of rest, and he had 22.7 assists, so maybe goes points, rebounds, and assists here. But I think it's a really good matchup, and it's a very winnable game for Detroit. So maybe he decides to pop off, but he is 34, and I can't trust Detroit players. So I like the play. It still scares me.
Fair. Well, we do have plenty of props that we just went through. So we do have a recap screen at the end of this. If you have any more NBA questions, let us know in the chat. Before we get into the NFL picks, I got to bring John in for a little one-play wonder for some hockey here. We're getting back into the hockey swing. We got to give him his chance. John, how we feeling? Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. We're doing good. Yeah, actually a bunch of NHL games today starting at, well, I guess they just started. But I'm going to go with a play from, I believe it's a 4:00 game. Carolina Hurricanes on the money line, -145 against the Kings. It's on MGM there. This one's pretty straightforward. The Kings have lost 8 straight games in a row now, while the Canes have won 7 of their last 8 games. The Kings and Canes, it's tough differentiation there. The Kings also haven't scored more than 3 goals in any of their 8 games, so that's kind of a magic number, and we know how good the Hurricanes defense is. So I think that this is pretty straightforward. You know, if the Kings do win this game, you tip your cap, but I'm going with the Hurricanes on the money line here.
Yeah. Sometimes you can't overthink it. Sometimes we go with the simple play here. All right, good stuff there. There is a bunch of NHL games, so if you have any more questions for John, certainly reach out to him in the chat here. All right, let's bring the other boys back in. Let's head over to the NFL finally. Now, I have this slide here with the Steelers Bills. We went over these plays in depth about 2 episodes ago, I believe, if you want more analysis. Just wanted to update the situation here. Jaylen Warren originally was at 35 rushing yards. You can now get him at 30, right, Steven?
Yeah, 30.5, but that's just on Fanatics. It's kind of an odd. I don't know if they're doing some kind of promotion. So that's something to capitalize on if you like the over for Warren.
Mm-hmm. And then Josh Allen, he ticked up a little bit from 37.5 to 38.5. Mason Rudolph still sitting at that 4.5 rushing yards. Play of the year. Play of the year.
Plus money's gone away. It was plus 102 the other day, and now it's minus 115.
Yeah. So still plays to look out for today, but what we really want to get into is our new plays for the Bucs-Eagles game here. Eagles on the road. We have them just barely winning this game. Overall, how do we feel about this matchup, guys?
Yeah, I mean, with A.J. Brown being out, the line didn't change because it looks like Baker Mayfield is he was always questionable, but he was kind of downgraded to a really questionable, legitimately game time decision, see how he looks an hour before game. So that kind of resulted in the sim didn't change. It still slightly leans Philadelphia, but the betting value still likes Tampa Bay.
Mm-hmm. And we talked about it. If you want to take the Bucs money line, the Houston money line, you're likely to go 1-1 and make some money. So maybe this is good for the Eagles and for me mentally. And the whole all the energy from the Cowboys loss, regression of the mean has to be the Eagles win this game, right?
Yeah, I mean that's like I was thinking the same thing. You know, the NFC East can't completely collapse.
Right. All right, well, let's get to the plays here. We'll start with Quez Watkins. Nick S saying it was up to 18.5 on some books. This is correct. I got at 15.5 earlier today. This is an act now situation because people are catching on here.
Yeah, sorry. So 12.5 is not probably on the board anymore. But the model has it all the way up to 31. So that's I think I would take that up to that point.
Yeah, so you get it probably up to 20 according to the model.
Yeah, so there's no A.J. Brown. We know that. And so the combined lines for Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert is around 120, and Hurts's line is 220. So there's 100 yards got to go somewhere. The unknown wild card is Julio Jones, who's going to come up in a second, but I don't think he's a yardage threat as much as Quez Watkins is. And last week with A.J. Brown getting hurt early and Devontae resting, Quez had 11 targets, 8 receptions, and 93 yards. When he's not on the bench, I mean, when he plays, he actually accounts for 12% of the team's receiving yards.
Right. Well, let's go to another player that could be catching, some of the benefits of A.J. Brown being out. We like Kenny Gainwell rushing and receiving yards in this spot. We have him at 42.
I'm relying on playoff Gainwell. Last year, he averaged 24 yards combined in the regular season, and it bumped up to over 60 in the 3 playoff games. Kind of shows me that the team has some trust in him. Last season, he was more trusted in the playoffs than Miles Sanders, who made the Pro Bowl. After a 7-week understretch where he wasn't getting much run, literally, the over is now 5-2 in his last 7 games, and he's averaged over 34 in the regular season. So if he just has his normal game, he should cruise right on over this. I also think that A.J. Brown being out, maybe there's some, that 25% reception target share could be distributed evenly among anybody out there.
Right. Yeah, we talked about Julio Jones earlier. Bet Rivers, I don't know if you can still get minus 115. There's definitely some steam on the juice here at least, but we don't trust the yardage necessarily with his old legs, but we do think he could get some action today.
Yeah, he finished the season with 11 targets, 6 receptions, his final 4 games, but he's under 10 yards per reception. He's the only wide receiver with the size and catch radius that could, make up for what A.J. Brown was. Devontae's small, Kes Watkins is roughly the same size in terms of measurables, and Zacchaeus is even smaller than both of them.
Mm-hmm. And Jake mentioning in the chat, we were talking about this earlier, probably some good anytime touchdown value. I think earlier or later today on Early Edge, I'll probably be taking his first touchdown. I think it's plus 1,700, 1,800 you can get.
Plus 1,800 on Bet Rivers, I want to say, or Bally, on Bally.
Are we going to mention our conspiracy theory about ESPN?
Oh yeah, so they have the best odds for Julio anytime touchdown, but they also have the lowest odds for Julio first touchdown. All right, so he's probably gonna, if he scores, it's probably gonna be late in the game.
If he scores late in the game, then it's gonna be like a wrestling heel move or something that was scripted.
Yeah, we're thinking ESPN knows a little something, considering they're covering the game, and they seem to have threaded the needle with this Julio Jones touchdown.
It's gonna be an Emmy-worthy situation.
Yes, definitely. All right, any more NFL questions? Certainly hit the chat. Oh, here we go. This Big Cheesy was mentioning Jaylen Warren. I'll head back to that slide. We do like Jaylen Warren in general in this game, but do we have any value on a touchdown?
What's the line on the touchdown?
Plus 250.
See, we have him at 0.21 rushing and receiving touchdowns combined. I mean, Najee's really getting those goal lines, right? So that would be, we'd probably set it closer to plus 400, which, so plus 250, not so good. All
right. Good stuff there. Let's move over. Jake we didn't realize this game started so early, but Jake had quite an interesting college basketball money line parlay here. So who already started playing?
So Niagara is playing right now. They're up 45-44. They're slowly blowing this game. So maybe you could still get this. Probably, if I'm in the DraftKings right now, it's probably, if you played it live with the Nicholls State money line, it's probably right around plus 100. But yeah, I thought this game was at 2, not at 12. So that was my bad. But I was sweating it out right now. Let's see. So it's pretty close to. If you want to play it live right now,
live,
it's plus 103. Plus 103 if you get on DK.
Bang.
So maybe do that right now.
All right. Nothing like a little live betting action in the middle of the show. Let's hit that recap screen quick. And as Big Cheesy said, please hammer the like button before you hammer your bets. Appreciate that support. We can use all the help we can get here. All right, let's kick it to the recap screen. A few things. And then again, if you like the Bills here, our Bills Steelers plays are on here as well as long words. It's along with the Eagles Bucs plays as well. So any more questions? Of course, reach out to us on Twitter before kickoff. Good luck with your bets tonight. A lot of early action for this Monday. That's all we can ever ask for. So we will see you guys tomorrow.